Hi guys, thanks for being with me today. I want to talk about the spa that I gave my spinning wheel and my sweater, of course, but mostly my spinning wheel. Hi there, thank you guys so much for being here. My name is Felicia Lowe and I'm from SweetGeorgia Yarns. We are a hand-dyed knitting yarn company based in Vancouver in Canada, and we've been making yarn since 2005, and I've been blogging about knitting and spinning and dyeing and weaving and all those kinds of things since about 2004. And so I am so glad that you have found us here. If this is the first time you guys are coming to see us, thank you guys so much for watching. And for anyone who's returning week after week, thank you guys so much for following what I'm doing here. Thank you guys. So I wanted to mention a couple of things before I get into the meat of the episode. And the first thing that I wanted to mention was that our latest issue of Make Hue just came out this past Monday. So if you are not yet familiar with Make Hue, basically, like I mentioned before, we have been writing, or I have been writing, the blog for SweetGeorgia since 2004. And this past year, we decided to do a little bit of a reorganization of how we write the content. And so rather than, writing one or two or three blog posts between me and people on my team, rather than us writing a whole bunch of blog posts and having them drip out all the time, we thought that maybe what we would do is collect everybody's energy and centralize it and focus it around a few different themes in the year. And so the first theme that we did was color, and that came out in January. The second theme was texture, and we talk about cables, but we also talk about how yarn is made and, the texture of the yarn itself. And this third issue, this one is about lace and light. And part of the reason is because July is also the month of my wedding anniversary. And for my wedding, I knit a hand-dyed, hand-knit wedding shawl. And it had Swarovski crystals and all these kinds of things. And so I've always been intrigued by wedding shawls, intrigued by lace shawls to begin with. I mean, lace is beautiful, and it's a huge accomplishment to be able to knit something like a big, fine lace shawl. So wedding shawls have always really, really intrigued me. So this issue is about knitting lace, wedding shawls in particular, about different stories about how people have created their wedding shawls or knit things to celebrate with, just lots of different articles about lace, and hopefully looking at it from a different way than you might normally look at it. So if you are at all interested in lace knitting, I really encourage you guys to look up our website, sweetgeorgiayarns.com, and then you'll go under Make Hue. It should be near the blog sort of area, but if you look at the blog, the posts about lace and lace knitting should all be there. Or if you want, you can also click a link to download the whole thing, and it's been formatted like a magazine. So it's been formatted into a PDF like a magazine, and throughout that magazine format, you'll find little discount codes and things like that sprinkled throughout the whole thing. So if you are at all interested, I encourage you to go check that out. So that's the first bit of news. The second bit of news is that at TNNA this year, which is the National Needle Arts trade show that we attend twice a year, once in January, once in June, we have been doing, for the past 2 shows now, we've been doing collaborations with other hand dyers. So you may or may not have heard of these packages because we've done them in quite sort of like a limited edition kind of things. But basically, SweetGeorgia, we've worked together with the other hand dyeing companies, Lorna's Laces and Zula, Oink Pigments, and Knit One Crochet Two. And they're not a hand dye company, but they are a very unique yarn company. And so the 5 of us, we got together with this idea of putting together different knitting kits that use mini skeins from each one of our companies. So the January package was a top-down triangle shawl called Vegas Nights, and it was inspired by the TNNA location in January, which was Las Vegas. And that one has, 5 different mini skeins all worked up together into a triangular shawl. So we did this again for the June TNNA. We did one that was inspired by Cleveland, because that's the location where the June TNA show was. So Cleveland, I believe, has a rock and roll hall of fame. And so we wanted it to be around music. We wanted it to be inspired by music. And so we put together a collection of colors from each one of these companies. And the shawl pattern is actually called Groove. And you can probably find it on Ravelry. The designer was Jen Lucas, and I interviewed her for the podcast last year as well. So she's a very, very prolific designer. And yeah, so you guys can find the pattern and then also find the kits through various retailers. So I believe Jimmy Bean's Wool stocks these kits and things like that. So you guys can go check those out there. So that is it for the news of the Sweet Georgia news side of things. The next stuff is my knitting stuff and my spinning wheel stuff. For the knitting stuff, I have been working on my Zweig sweater, which I show you guys, every week. And last Friday, I didn't have time. Well, I didn't have time last week to record a whole vlog. And so I did it as a live stream. So, time when I normally publish the videos, it was going to be 10 o'clock Friday morning. 10 o'clock Friday morning last week, I did a live stream. And so I just showed you guys the sweater. And so here it is. I have now finished. Oh, it's backwards. No, it's not. I have finished the whole left sleeve. Doesn't even show up on camera. Yay! So I always say, do as I say, don't do as I do. I always encourage you to read ahead in the pattern and measure as you go and do those kinds of things. I was knitting the sleeve for the longest time, and I just got into the rhythm of knitting the sleeve. And I even went to, we had a staff barbecue on the weekend, and I was knitting. I basically hold my entire project in my bag like this, and then I carry the bag on my wrist, and then I knit the sleeve as I'm walking around the barbecue. And even Charlotte was like, you can't put that down. You're knitting that while you're walking around. And I'm thinking, this is the only time I get to actually knit. And so I just kept knitting and knitting and knitting the sleeve. And I didn't really think about it or realize that the design of the pattern is meant to be somewhat blousy. Like the sleeve is meant to be somewhat loose. And then around here, it kind of like cinches up by, doing a sort of aggressive decrease. You decrease 1/3 of the stitches and you cinch it all up, and then you knit 2x2 ribbing for another 5 inches, which is kind of like, that's kind of unusual, I guess, for like it's not, I don't know. I always think sleeve cuffs are 2 inches of ribbing and then it's all, gradually decreased and stuff like that. So the style of this particular sleeve for the Zweig sweater is more blousy. And so yeah, I wasn't thinking about that at all. And I ended up knitting 17 inches of the lace pattern sleeve. And then I had to rip back 5 inches to then knit 5 inches of ribbing. But in any case, it's fine. It's done. So that side's done. And then I've picked up the sleeves stuff for the other side and just sort of trucking along with that. So now that this is almost done, it's almost done. I'm so eager to cast on for the next project. Like, so eager. And so what I want to work on next is actually hopefully going to be a sweater for Nina. And it's hopefully going to be a little sample that I can bring to Knit City and show everybody and things like that. And what I wanted to do was I wanted to make a pattern that is being designed by Tin Can Knits. And so they are coming out with a whole bunch of patterns this fall that are all like color work yoke and things like that. And so I picked one that I really, really like. And so it has a color work yoke. It feels very modern. It feels like very minimalist, and uses 4 separate colors in the top and then 1 color in the body, like a solid color in the body. So I thought that for those colors in the yoke, I wanted to use the Party of 5. So I have this Party of 5 that we launched, I think, this spring, and it's called, I'm going to try and put them in order, like so. So those 5 colors together, it's not meant to be a gradient or anything like that. It's meant to really be just a combination of colors that look kind of sweet together. And this one is called Fairy Tale. So I thought what I could do was take 4 of these 5 skeins and then maybe use the 5th color as the body color. And so what I have here is some worsted weight in lupine that I'm going to use. So this party of 5 has apricot in it, and this is Lady Gray. It's kind of like a purplish gray color. This one is mulberry. This is my favorite purpley plummy color. And this one is iris. So this one is actually very, very close to lupine. They belong together in another gradient set. So they were right next to each other. So very, very similar. So what I was going to do is, instead of using the iris, I was going to substitute with the lupine, and the lupine was going to become the body. So the last color is going to be this one, which was marine, and it's like a very, very dark, subdued navy color. So these colors together to form a sweater for Nina. Yeah. The other option that I had was, I have these 3 skeins of mink left over. I have these 3 skeins of mink left over from when I did the Veronica sweater. And so I thought maybe these could be the body of a sweater. And then I would use this party of 5. Let me see. This party of 5 for the yoke. And so this one is called Tranquility. This is a new one that we're doing for fall. It's really, really, really subtle. This might be the first time that you actually see it. It's like our palest, most subtle colors. And so there's Watershed, Lilac, Lady Gray, London Fog, and Jasmine. So those ones together with mink, maybe. It would make a very, very understated sweater. I feel like kids should wear things that are really bright and fun, but I only have so much yarn, so I'm not sure. Because the other thing is that with the Tin Can Knits patterns, there's no yardage specified yet for this particular pattern, because they're still test knitting it. So they're still trying to figure out how much yardage is required. So I don't know if I need 3 skeins of worsted or 5 skeins of worsted. I actually don't know for which size. So I'm just trying to make the smaller sizes so that I make sure that I can finish it with the amount of yarn that I have. So that is it for the knitting side of things. I am excited to cast on. Russell helped me wind the lupine skeins tonight. He's very, very excited about winding the yarn. He's actually very good at it now. He can wind it very, very consistently. So that was really great. And yeah, ready to cast on, ready to start something new. I have so many ideas of things that I want to start. So I just have to take it one step at a time. So the other thing that has been occupying my mind for the past week, since last week, is my spinning wheel. If you guys participated in the live stream, or if you watched it afterwards, you might have seen that like around the 28-minute mark, I demonstrated the horrible squeaking noise that my spinning wheel was making. So basically every time you treadle, it was going squawk, 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 and it was only on the right treadle. And I found that the problem was sort of coming from the treadle hinges. So there's a bar at the bottom of the spinning wheel, and then the treadle's attached to that bar with like 2 little flaps of leather. And so I guess maybe that leather was getting dried out, or was getting cracked, or it's just it was not well oiled or well taken care of. And so that was probably causing a bit of a squawking feeling. And so I looked on Ravelry. There's a Shacked Spinners forum on Ravelry, and I just read through everything I could to do with squeaking, wheel squeaking, matchless squeaking, and discovered that there was like a couple of things that people have adjusted in order to make sure that that squeak doesn't come back. So one of the things is like unscrewing the little foot screws to make sure that the wheel is perfectly balanced, but also make sure that the tip of the screw doesn't touch the leather hinges, so I had to like unscrew those a little bit, make sure they're all balanced. And then last week somebody on the live stream had suggested using some mink oil. So mink oil looks like this. So, you know, it's a leather protector. It's my husband uses this on his shoes and his like leather bag and stuff like that. So you just rub this on and then let it sink in, and then, you know, buff it a little bit with a cloth. So this was one option, and I used a little bit, but there was still a little bit more squeak. And then I found somebody else was saying on the forum that Shact actually recommends this other thing called Obanoff's heavy duty leather conditioner. So then I found it on Amazon. So I found this jar on Amazon. Oh, can you see? Can you see? Yeah, Obanoff's heavy duty leather protector. So this apparently is used by firefighters, and they put this on their boots to make sure it's really, really super waterproof, make sure that it's well sealed. There is some beeswax in here. There's oils in here, obviously. So I found like a little Q-tip and put a little bit in, you know, try to wedge it in, because I didn't really want to take the wheel apart, and just, yeah, try to stuff as much as I could in. I wasn't sure if it was going to actually do anything, but it actually seemed to remove almost all of the squeak. The third thing that I did see on the Shact forums was people were talking about how Shact has replaced those leather hinges with something different. So they've replaced it with PVC. And so you can get PVC hinges from Shact now as a part, I guess, that you can swap out. So I contacted Shact and talked to Cindy there in support, and right away, she's great, right away she shipped out these leather hinges. Oh no, not leather, PVC hinges. So they arrived this afternoon. So they are basically just this, like they're just two pieces of plastic, and they make no noise. I guess they'll never make any noise. So that would be great. Apparently they need no maintenance whatsoever. I have not yet installed them on the wheel yet, because again, I read from someone else that if you are unscrewing and then screwing the things back in, you know, like the more you unscrew and screw things in, the more the wood is gonna like lose its grip. And so, you know, do it as minimally as possible. So if you don't need to do it yet, maybe don't do it yet. So I tried the leather protector stuff, and if the wheel is almost entirely silent now, I think I'm gonna just leave it and see how it goes. And if it does end up being a problem, then I am gonna take it all apart and then put these things in. So that's the next step. But yeah, Shact was really awesome about, you know, replying right away, and they were like, oh yeah, get these. So easy. So as I was thinking about, you know, fixing up the wheel and all this kind of stuff, for a long time now, I have been wanting to sort of do a Danish oil treatment of the wheel. You know, like when the wheel sits up here in the attic, it's actually really, really warm. Obviously, all the heat rises to the attic. In fact, it is super hot right now. It's smoking hot in here. But the heat all rises and comes to the attic, which makes all of this wood kind of like dry up and shrink, and it's starting to look really thirsty. And so I have wanted for a long time to use this Danish oil on the wheel and just restore it. I had a previous phase where I really, really wanted to do this. So I ran out and bought all this, you know, Danish oil, and then somehow maybe the can got tipped over and it was leaking. So it leaked and then dried outside. And so the lid doesn't actually come off anymore. So then I had to go back to the store this week and then buy a new bottle of Danish oil. And I did that this afternoon. I hung out with Nina today, and while she was eating her snack inside, I was out in the backyard putting some of this Danish oil on the wheel, and it looks so lovely. It looks so shiny, and it looks so fresh and new and clean, and it's just so nice. So if you have a spinning wheel, or if you have a weaving loom, or if you have even spindles, anything that is made out of natural wood that doesn't have that polyurethane finish on it or something like that, any of those things, you can put this Danish oil finish on it, and it makes everything look so nice. One of the things that I would recommend is if you are going to do it, you have to do it obviously in a very well ventilated area. The way that you apply it is it looks very liquidy. It doesn't, it's oily, and it has a bit of a like a paint thinner kind of smell, and it's quite thin, but it does kind of penetrate into the wood and then dry in there and harden and I guess protect the wood from inside out. I think that's the general idea. And so the way that you apply it is you wipe on a coat, and then you let that sit for 30 minutes and let it all absorb into the wood, and then you apply a little bit more, and then let that sit for another 15 minutes at least, and then you go back, and before anything actually dries, you need to buff off all of the excess. So anything that looks shiny or puddly, you have to wipe it away, get rid of the excess, and then buff it smooth, so that way there's no puddles, because those puddles will dry in a very sticky, gummy kind of way. So you got to make sure that it's all the excess is taken care of. So that's the first thing. The next thing that I found out with a little Google is that this kind of stuff is prone to spontaneous combustion, which was terrifying after I read that. But basically the idea is that as this is drying, as the oil is drying, it actually gives off heat. And so if you have buffed off all of this excess oil onto a cloth, that cloth, if you fold it up together and just stuff it in or bunch it up and then stuff it in an enclosed area, that heat can sort of increase inside that packet of oily cloth, and then the heat has nowhere to escape, so it could literally burst into flames. It's crazy. So you're supposed to let everything, all those cloths, dry out ahead of time, or you put them in water, you soak them in water, and then you let them dry flat and not touching anything else. And then once they're dry, then you can actually toss them away. But that was terrifying when I read about that. And so I'm always very worried about safety. So that was concerning to me. But I love the effect and I love the finish so much that I've been literally looking throughout my house and seeing what else can I finish in this house. Can I grab all my spindles? Can I take my weaving loom outside? Like everything, all the wood that looks a little bit dry and, needs a little bit of attention. This is a really nice way to clean it up and make it look nice. It is literally like taking your spinning wheel and taking it to the spa. It gets a little exfoliation, it gets a little bit of moisturizing, it gets a little bit of, serum, it gets a little bit of buffing and polishing. Oh, it's really nice. It's really fun. So what I read is that people do this, once a year. Some people do it twice a year. But it's probably something that would be nice to incorporate into, like a maintenance schedule of taking care of the tools that you work with. I read about this from Rebecca Metzoff today. She's a tapestry weaver, and so she teaches online classes about tapestry weaving and things like that. And so I follow her newsletter, and she said something about being a process weaver. So it doesn't really matter what the final product is going to be like. It matters to her, the feel of the yarn, watching the colors come together, and the feel of the tools in your hands as you work with them. And I thought about that as I was, doing all this stuff. And it's like, I love working with these tools. These tools are beautifully made. These spinning wheels are like works of art. They're beautiful pieces of furniture, and you should care for them, take care of them, and enjoy the feel of working with these tools. It's all part of that entire experience. So anyways, that's what I have been preoccupied with this week. Now that the squeak is gone, now I can hopefully next week film some of those spinning classes that we're going to be putting on the School of SweetGeorgia. And yeah, very excited about getting all of this stuff going. So that is it for this week. Thank you guys so much for being here today. Thank you guys for watching this. If you like this episode, if you like this kind of content, please hit the like button and leave me a comment. Let me know, do you spin? Do you take care of your wheel? How do you take care of your wheel? How do you take care of your other tools that you normally work with? I would love to hear about any suggestions that you guys might have about any of that kind of stuff. So thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye for now.